comparatively that it's only capable of producing a very short, intense growing season, and is incapable of supporting an environment with this high level of productivity. Now, I'm sure there's many factors contributing to the downfall of the mammoth steppe. I think it's something very interesting to think about, because if the mammoth steppe goes from one of the largest biomes in the world to barely a few patches across the planet in just a handful of 10, 15,000 years, it makes me think about what was lost. What sorts of species and subspecies of grasses, insects, and rodents once called this place home? After all, grasslands are immensely productive and biodiverse environments. Now, without getting too into the weeds into extinct insects, the rise of the mammoth steppe ecosystem in Boggerland brought with it all of our favorite charismatic megafauna. Mammoths, woolly rhinos, saber-toothed tigers, and horses once roamed this land. And so is the mammoth steppe environment is the first real ecosystem to take hold in the coasts, rivers, and lakes of Boggerland. But the climate continued to change. The earth got a little bit warmer, there was a little bit more humidity, and the ice caps continued to melt. And so the higher temperatures and rainfall eventually caused the mammoth steppe to turn into the dogger woodland. No, of course I didn't. Okay, quick PSA here. Whenever I talk about paleoecology and the climate changing at the end of the last days on maximum, I always get at least one comment from someone being like, look, see, the climate's always been changing. I'd like to remind everyone that while I study archaeology, I do have my primary degree in environmental science as well, and I can tell you pretty confidently as someone that has done 30 years of school in environmental science that climate change is actually happening. If you do not believe in anthropogenic man-made climate change, the only explanation I can see for it is that you have not actually done your own research. So I encourage you, before you read that comment, to actually go look into this, literally a tiny little bit, because it is happening. This is the fastest the Earth has ever warmed since the Chicxulub impact event, which is, probably not a good sign, and there is extensive evidence to back up that it is greenhouse gas emissions from our modern society. Lost on your inability to understand or simple ignorance of the facts does not make them any less true. So, let's keep it. Around 11,500 years ago began the Holocene epoch, or epoch, because I know that one of you is going to criticize me on it in the comments. You can meet up with the guy who left the comment about the comic artist in Kansas. Maybe you can criticize. This time period, about 11,500 years ago, would have been right at the end of the Younger Dryas period, a time when the Earth's temperatures dipped rise. The third environment during the transitional Holocene period of Doggerland would have been grassland. I know it's not very exciting, but there still would have been some of it left because there were things grazing there. While mammoths would have gone extinct in this region about 10,000 years before, there were still wild horses and other grazing animals that likely kept large growth to a minimum, maintaining large grasslands. And the last of the major environments was marshland. As the sea level rose and more rain fell, large areas that wet. They were wet. You want to explain marshland to you? Good. This also led to a transitional area between the ocean and the lowlands. Because the land was so flat, there were huge estuaries and deltas that would have been brackish, where fresh water and salt water would have been
Yo guys, what?
We begin to see a transition into what's called a pre-boreal environment. Slowly but surely, we see birch and pine begin to creep into the pollen record. This period also saw the rise of the heathland, a scrubland environment that did really well in the now accumulated layer of poor acidic soil. There's mostly scrub brush and small plants. And finally, about 10,500 years ago, Doggerland gave way to a boreal forest. The pollen record indicates an uptick in hazel and oak trees, and in the marine environment to the north, green algae. Now it is survived there in the warmer climate. There's also evidence to suggest that the freshwater ecosystems were thriving at this time, with a large increase in the amount of aquatic species present on Doggerland, especially common with things like snails, mussels, and other mollusks. But during this boreal period, some of the cracks start to show. This is the first time that we see living environment beginning to be overtaken by sea level rise. And the warming of the climate, which is causing the sea level to rise, is also forcing more animals into this very productive environment. Species like the red deer, and those that would go on to make tools out of its antlers, Homo sapiens, who are actually probably there pretty much as long as anything else was. In order to help us learn a little bit more about this environment, I want to welcome someone very special. A friend of mine and another amazing science communicator here on YouTube, none other than History with Kaylee.
So let's take a look at some of the remnants from the Doggerland landscape that we can see today in modern times. The landscape that went all the way from modern day the west coast of the Netherlands to the modern day east coast of England. Near where I grew up is a place called School. This location has a beautiful pine forest that mixes together with the sand of the dunes. These pine trees were planted about 100 years ago, but the trees seem to run the area leaving behind large sandy plains. As you can imagine, sandy plains are not a great defense storms. And knowing that this area of the Netherlands is situated a couple meters below sea level, this was a bit of an issue.
Need to try this shit.
Was made to reinstate the Atlantic Green Forest. And the same species, pine trees, also oak, birches, and so on, were thus planted about 100 years ago. Pine trees hold the sand with their roots, preventing it from blowing away, and they evaporate a lot of water. What's fascinating is that School in the Netherlands is located at a latitude of 52.7, and Norfolk in England is located at a latitude of 52.6. The reason why this is fascinating has to do with the fact that here in Norfolk we can see the remnants of the other side of this ancient Atlantic Green Forest. The coastline of Norfolk has the same palm, oak, birch, and rowan trees that grow through and near the sandy dunes, showing to us that long ago, during the time when Doggerland was still a landmass, a massive forest with sandy plains stretched from the modern-day coast of the Netherlands to the modern-day coast of Norfolk in England. This type of forest is actually very common along the Atlantic coast of England. The characteristic of this particular ecosystem is the salt spray that the strong wind constantly brings with it. That salt spray and the wind ensure that the upper parts of the branches often break off, which causes trees to grow in more width, which explains their irregular shapes. Of course, it's unclear when the Atlantic Green Forest first came to be, but it's safe to bet that this occurred before Doggerland sank beneath the waves. The forest most likely changed over time due to the salt spray, but because we can clearly see two distinct locations on both sides of the North Sea at nearly the same latitude, it's not a big stretch to think that there used to be a very large forest spanning from North Holland in the Netherlands to Norfolk in England.
Thank you very much for sharing your expertise, Kaylee. You may be doing yourself well. Kaylee actually lives near the North Sea. She's probably a lot more qualified to make this video, and she is, which is why she also made a video about Doggerland, focusing a lot more on the archaeology. This is a collaboration. This is what collaborations are. This is how we collaborate. This is how we uplift each other, you know? Just science communicators looking out for science communicators. Anyway, after this video, you should go check out Kaylee's video if you want to learn a little bit more about...
No, there's no way. It just fucking lagged the room.
What we have now is
No, my Wi-Fi died.
productive environment, a lowland that supported a shallow marine ecosystem and freshwater lakes, both of which would have been teeming with life, as well as rivers, forests, and grasslands crawling with horses, deer, and other delicious little guys. And bands of hunter-gatherers would have followed game into this environment and benefited from its vast resources. But this paradise wouldn't last, because where there is life, there must also be death. And I think now it's finally time to talk about the unfortunate final chapter, the death of Doggerland. It's the biggest deal at breakfast. 2 delicious wake-up wrap sandwiches and a hotter iced coffee that don't get $5 meal deal.
Well, your question is actually a bunch of questions. When's the best time this weekend to host a breakfast barbecue? And what's something impressive I can build that I don't have to stand right next to the whole time? Let's do it.
It's been argued that Doggerland was lost over 3 major stages that took place over the course of a few thousand years. The first of this was during the early Holocene, about 9,000 years ago, as sea levels continued to rise. Since much of Doggerland was a low-lying area, most of it was highly susceptible to even a small amount of sea level rise. And as this process persisted into the Holocene, eventually Doggerland began to fragment. Slowly, seawater would have surrounded the Dogger Hills, creating the Dogger Bank Island. And with this, other lumpy glacial deposits became islands as well. This period would have transformed Doggerland from a vast open plain into an archipelago. At the time of this archipelago, about 8,000 years ago, the sea level had showed no signs of stopping. The large Dogger Bank Island became smaller and smaller, and many of the little islands just sank beneath the waves entirely. To put this into perspective, let me give a little bit of an illustration of how quickly the sea levels rose. Between 20,000 years ago and 11,500 years ago, the sea level went from 425 feet below its present level to 230 feet below its present level. Editors, do a little bit of math there to show how much of a difference that is. And maybe if you want to be fancy, a little bit to show how much that is per year. And maybe even how much that is on a human lifetime. To show that this wasn't fucking Atlantis, it's just suddenly went underwater on us. Because I know someone's going to say it. Then from about 11,500 years ago to about 8,000 years ago, the sea level went from 230 feet below present to just 85 feet below present. As the sea level rose, more and more of Doggerland was submerged, eventually leaving it with just the Dogger Highlands Island and the productive marshy low-lying lands of the British Isles and continental Europe. But that's no fun. We want floods. I want Atlantis. Okay, now we come to flashing things that destroy Doggerland that, make really fun Netflix mockumentary series. You see my eye twitch there? I swear to God, I felt it twitch. Fucking season 2. It's coming, isn't it? I'm gonna need a lot of this to get through that. Okay, finally, here's some of the fun theories about what destroyed Doggerland. About 8,200 years ago, something happened about 3,500 miles away. In North America, the retreat of the Laurentide ice sheet and the Cordilleran ice sheet had resulted in massive glacial lakes. There were some small ones, like Glacial Lake Cape Cod, some medium ones, like Glacial Lake Hitchcock, which I am currently working on a video about, throw a cool animation up in there, and some absolutely massive glacial lakes, like Glacial Lake Missoula in the Pacific Northwest. Among the massive lakes was Lake Agassiz. Lake Agassiz filled what is now the Great Lakes region, and it was absolutely gigantic, covering an estimated area of 170,000 square miles. Like Hitchcock and Lake Missoula, the death of Lake Agassiz took place in the form of a massive cataclysmic flood. Around 8,200 years ago, something went terribly wrong in North America, and the entire lake drained out of the Hudson Hudson River pretty much all at once. This caused a couple problems. One, it raised the sea level by Doggerland by between half a foot and a foot over the course of a few months to a year. And two, it trapped the North Atlantic thermohaline conveyor belts. This huge influx of cold water made the weather systems in the North Atlantic just kind of like die, which caused a period of extended regional cooling for about 100 to 150 years. Next time you think that the environment isn't important, remember that it is literally the only thing that has dictated every single chapter of Earth's history. So that's pretty bad. But the final controversial event, which some believe to have led to the death of Doggerland, is a giant tsunami. Concrete description of what happened to Doggerland, I would say Doggerland's destruction was due to sea level rise. Sea level rise that took place in an immensely fast-paced in geologic time, but was almost imperceptible on human lifespan. But there are some for Doggerland was a massive tsunami. Around 8,200 years ago, the same time that all that horrible stuff was happening in North America, an enormous submarine landslide took place off of Norway's west coast. It is estimated that between 600 and 800 cubic miles of sediment broke free from the continental shelf, resulting in one of the largest underwater landslides that we have any evidence of. This massive force caused a huge displacement underwater, which resulted in a tsunami. Now, since the landslide was going west, most of the tsunami probably kind of went out to the open ocean. There is evidence of the impact of the tsunami all across the coast of the North Sea. In Scotland, there are deposits associated with the tsunami that indicate it could have had a height of between 10 and 17 feet. And evidence in Denmark suggests that it was impacted as well, even though it wasn't directly in the tsunami's path. Which means that even if it wasn't the brunt of it, some portion of this massive tsunami was headed straight for whatever was left of Doggerland. Even if Doggerland didn't bear the full brunt of this force, the devastation would have been astronomical. Essentially submerged in the forced the tsunami upwards, where it would have barreled straight into Doggerland. And clear samples taken from the southern North Sea do support this. While the impact is likely different in much of Doggerland, it's believed that the part that was hit
Nigga, shut the fuck up.
this outlying island was kind of like a barrier island for much of the southern part of the North Sea, and it was likely slammed with the tsunami. Any communities that called this place home would have been devastated. And to make matters worse, since many ancient hunter-gatherers would have lived along the very productive coastlines, they were right in the tsunami's path. With no warning and some of the most productive environments hit the hardest, it's likely that ancient humans were hit immensely hard by this disaster. There are even estimates that the tsunami wiped out a quarter of the North Sea coast population. Now, while there is plenty of evidence that the tsunami impacted this area, there's not much to say that this is truly the final nail in the coffin. It's unlikely that the tsunami was able to submerge the rest of Doggerland, and even if it did, since it was a tsunami, it eventually just would have washed back out to sea. But it wouldn't be unfair to think that this could have been a coup de grace to many of the communities that had this place home. So proving that the tsunami had on the ancient people of Doggerland is really hard to do. Because a tsunami is so immensely destructive, there is barely anything left from it. People raided coastlines, washed away archaeological evidence, and left a massive mess behind. And it happened at the exact same time as some of the coldest, harshest weather of the last millennium. The land ended up surviving into the Neolithic period. By about 7,000 years ago, what was once Dogger Island had been reduced to a massive sandbar. And not long after that, it slipped beneath the waves entirely. But despite the few tangible objects from Doggerland, we are still fascinated by it. And our hunger for knowledge has pushed the boundaries of archaeology as we tried to understand the ancient people of Doggerland. The field of archaeology is kind of like being a crime scene investigator. You're trying to piece together a story from while most archaeological sites pose some sort of challenge, Doggerland is an entirely different beast. The inundation of Doggerland from sea level rise to tsunamis have meant that the context of the archaeological sites there have been completely destroyed. As I talk about a lot on this channel, context is the understanding of where an artifact is from. Having a projectile point in a box is really not worth all that much. Instead, you want to know the environment that it was found in. Was it in a riverbed? Was it in a peat bog? And was there anything else near it? Random chance discovery seashore or a needle in a haystack dredged up from the ocean, it's really hard to learn about the people that once lived there. But archaeologists can be incredibly resourceful, and just because we know that does not mean that we're not going to learn something about it. One of the best examples of this needle in a haystack is from, once again, our boy, Gaffney. In an estuary site known as the Southern River off the coast of Norfolk, Gaffney and his team took one of their core samples. And as lucky as happened, this core sample happened to contain the remains of a megalithic tool that had been lost at the bottom of the ocean for thousands of years. While this isn't the most flashy discovery, it was a revolutionary find, not only telling us more about Doggerland itself, but also being the first artifact in the world successfully recovered from a deep-sea environment. Despite their rarity, artifacts, not unlike me, turn up. I don't think I can say turn up while doing any of this. I need a natty light. And as fragmentary as they are, they do give us a tantalizing glimpse into what life would have been like in Doggerland. If you want to learn a little bit more about the life of ancient humans in Doggerland, I really recommend you check out History with Kaylee's video. The link to that is in the description. We did these videos sort of as a collaboration, where she focused on the human side of things and I focused on the natural side of things. I guess humans are natural, but you know what? I'm going to view the world with a human-centric lens because I am as human as I am. Well, folks, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I would be very appreciative if we could get some type of interaction. I make all of my educational content on YouTube for free, and engaging with the video helps them do better and allows you to continue watching them for free. Like I always say, consider it like tipping the bell. Except instead of actually tipping, it's literally completely free, and there is no reason not to. So, do it. This has been a fun one, hasn't it? It got a lot of attention here. Sun sets now at like 3 p.m. Well, guys, I think that's going to do it. I would like to give an extra special thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Patrons get early ad-free access to all of my videos. Not only that, but all of your names are going to be in the credits of this video as a small token of my appreciation. If you'd like to become a patron and support what I do here directly, the link to that's in the description. Right down there. And lastly, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of my returning viewers. I feel like the latter half of this summer has been really successful, and it's been amazing to actually get some great videos out that I'm really proud of and see people absolutely love them. And I feel like I'm really starting to hit a stride here, which is pretty awesome. Anyway, with a set like this, I mean, Jesus, I kind of got to take it seriously, you know? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you all very much for watching this video. My name is Milo Rossi. Remember to stay curious, stay inquisitive, and most importantly, remember to be like a willow. Cool and wet. Bottoms up. Salute. Oh, shit. Whoa. Schminky, do you want to be in the credit sequence? Schminky doesn't want to be in the credit sequence, but she's going to. Oh, she's a circle. Do you know how to read on it? No, she's more of a floppy nose. She just kind of does this. Whoa. She's doing sit-ups. I'm going to have the first domestic cat to have abs. Yeah, you're just like Dad. Fucking jacked.
The fuck just happened?
Oh my god.
I killed myself.
site was finally surveyed. Between 2000 and 2011, the archaeological site was surveyed as part of the F-Lmfao City Cultural Inventory. Initial excavations of the site indicated that it also had teeth below, leading archaeologists to believe that it may be related to the same culture that built the F-Lmfao.
But they found that the construction of this site was completely different. Unlike the large T-stones of the F-Lmfao, which were carved separately and erected in a specialized platform carved into the bedrock, Pharaoh's Tepe is unique in that almost the entire site was carved directly out of the bedrock itself. Ooh, there's a little bit of altitude here. Yeah, amazing. As you remember about the Tepe, it also comes at an inflection point where humanity was just beginning to discover space before moving away from a hunter-gatherer lifestyle.
Pharaoh's Tepe was invaded to the same time frame as the much more well-known Göbekli Tepe, and this site is of immense antiquity, with the site being dated back between 9,500 and 10,000 BCE, making this ancient site nearly 12,000 years old. Every site of human occupation predating Karahan Tepe is one that was inhabited by transient hunter-gatherers, people who were either migratory or were merely passing through the area. This means that Karahan Tepe is the oldest permanent settlement ever discovered on the face of our planet.
If you look over the hill to my shoulder, you can see why people would have wanted to live here. As a group that was still primarily massive exposed stones that showed evidence of wear from hundreds, if not thousands, of years of rapid water movement. And so when you look at this valley, you have to remember that we are seeing it as we see it in our modern climate, and not as those who built Karahan Tepe would have seen it in their heyday. Damn, that's amazing. And like many of the sites around here, water plays a large role, as we will see shortly. First rooms that you'll notice at Karahan Tepe is this one, which appears to be some form of large pool. Some archaeologists believe that this was supposed to be intentionally filled with water, and there is enough evidence to back that up with several carved channels around it. You can actually see one of the channels sort of in the rock over there, which leads down like a bit of a drainage spout. And on this side, you can see another one of those drainage channels. This one, however, is a lot deeper. This room with the central pool also has a bench on the back side, and this is the first of many carvings that you're going to see at this site. Along the base of this bench is a carved image of a serpent, which runs from that end all the way to somewhere in the middle here. It's a little hard to tell because of how weathered it is. However, on the far right, you can see a carving of a wolf or a dog or something. Features of Karahan Tepe is the penis structure. It is directly room to contain enormous stone phalluses. However, one pillar which is correct. While the 10 penises are carved out of the stone itself, there was only one pillar which is actually moved here. If you get a little bit closer, you can actually see it as this long, thin pillar which sits right at the center. Now, you can't see it from this angle. This pillar is home to the first of many leopard carvings that you'll see at this site. It is
the penis room shows a similar emphasis as Göbekli Tepe did on masculinity. It is believed that the Taz-Kefler cultures were ones who put a large emphasis on reproduction and fertility. This is likely due to the harsh environment that these people lived in, one where their lifespans would have only been around 35 years. So in a world as harsh as the one that these people would have lived in, it's very likely that the emphasis would be to continue the cultural traditions.
Disappear into the ground. this site is as you walk around, you will just pass a test pit like this, where you can just kind of see the tops of some stones sticking out of the ground. It's crazy to think we get to be back here in a couple of years and read about what could be hidden under the ground right beneath our feet. Now, while mine is not the first phone crew that has been allowed here, mine has been the electrical phone crew allowed here. And there has been some major developments since the last time anyone has shot here. That being that this site has been confirmed to have dwellings in it. Previous interpretations of this site have relied on it being more of a cultural and ceremonial center and had no idea what it was doing. Americans have found a couple of graves at this site, though they aren't fully understood. There was one that they were working on excavating that they believe to be somewhat of importance, but the structural integrity of the house preventing them from digging any further. So it is interesting that we are going to be able to learn something about this culture within this hill because there are human burials here, which is something that I don't believe they have found as of yet at F-Lmfao. One of the most incredible things about F-Lmfao is that it is 98% excavated. As we walk across this hill, the entire site is littered with the tops of T-pillars, meaning that what we are looking at is not a small hilltop settlement, but a massive mountain that was completely covered in a settlement at one time. For example, right here, if you look at the ground, there is a top of a T-pillar that literally just sticking out of the floor. And so it's amazing to stand here and touch this and realize that underneath us is something that is going to change the way we view this site. And I think that that's one of the most important things to note, is that anyone who tries to make an interpretation on this place is doing it based on a tiny amount of evidence. Tepe, and now I'm in the jungle. I was told there'd be fun and games, but all I'm getting is eaten alive by mosquitoes. It was cooler in my head. The observers around me will have noticed that this doesn't look like the arid foothills of southeastern Turkey. And you'd be right about that, because it isn't. It's the cloud forest of South America. I'm currently on a assignment in South America doing some work looking at some temporary wildlife and doing surveys of is that under the tour. For those of you that don't know, all the videos of Turkey were part of a tour that I guided, and I am honored to have been asked to guide another one, this time through the Sacred Valley of Peru. The upcoming tours will take place the last week of September and the first week of October of this year, our Lord, 2023. I made that joke when I announced Turkey, didn't I? During this expedition, my guests and I will be exploring some of the Mediterranean constructions, such as the one Taekwondo, Satsai Woman, and the Forest Market. So if I come back ranting and raving about aliens, you'll know why. So for those of you who are interested in the traditional medicine side of South American culture, you can join me for that as well. And if you like the sound of all of this, there's also a package deal where you can do both the last week of the archaeological tour and the traditional medicine tour. And last but not least, this project is being done with the Community Garden, who do charity work in South America. They work directly with and are partly run by indigenous South Americans, making sure that the funds are being directed to the right places, and everything is being done and appropriately. And because of this, all of the excess proceeds that don't go to, paying the staff and paying for the place we're staying are going to be going to the Community Garden charity. And that is a pretty good cause. But for now, I am losing my life in about an hour, and I have no hummingbirds that I need to take pictures of. So get right back in the video if you want to know more about the retreats. I'll leave the link to the video where I talk about it in the description. Hope you guys are enjoying the Turkey series, by the way. Really, really human here. See you guys in a bit. As we enter the center of the site, we are faced with the largest currently estimated building. Once again, this looks like residents in this area, with there being also noted recurring motifs at a lot of these Tepler sites. For example, at Göbekli Tepe, there is a huge emphasis on foxes, which dominate the pillars all across the site. Whereas at F-Lmfao, the favorite iconography seems to be leopards. And there is physical evidence of this as well, with leopard bones being found at this site. This supports the idea that the image found on that stone is not supposed to be some sort of deity, but rather a depiction of ceremony or somebody wearing a leopard skin. This is further supported by both Göbekli Tepe and F-Lmfao not containing any creatures that are mythical. Every animal found at these sites is something which exists in reality.
Much like Göbekli Tepe, the builders of F-Lmfao had a passion of animals such as snakes and birds found carved into the rock, but there have also been some smaller artifacts found as well. Among these is a small piece of stone believed to have once been part of a pillar, and it depicts three different, now broken rectangular forms: the face and hind legs of two different rabbits and the back legs of a gazelle. These would have been prolific game animals for the people of F-Lmfao at the time, and still possess massive quantities of the whole today. A second and more elaborate style artifact discovered is a large carved stone head. This is a fairly unique discovery, as both Göbekli Tepe and F-Lmfao lack a lot of sculptures showing human heads. However, this carving is quite ornate. It shows stylized brow ridges, a large nose, and even rows of carved teeth. What the statue represents, whether or not it was once attached to a larger body, or whether it was broken intentionally, are still unknown. However, in my opinion, the most interesting artifact recovered from F-Lmfao is known as the totem pole. It is a small statuette that bears a superficial resemblance to a totem pole from Native American cultures. This small carving seems to depict a seated or squatting man carrying a leopard on his back, an interpretation which is corroborated by the other leopard iconography found around the site, including the large carving of a man with a leopard-print pattern on him, which some have erroneously claimed is evidence of aliens or some sort of lost Atlantean civilization, but is in all likelihood a man wearing a leopard skin. The Karahan totem is one of two totems found from the Tepler people, with a second small totem being found at Göbekli Tepe. This carving depicts what appears to be several people stacked on top of one another, and the similarities between these two carvings highlight the cultural diffusion that would have been present in this area at the time.
Leopards are not the only animal whose bones have been found at this site. Archaeologists who have been responsible for the research and discoveries at F-Lmfao have also, oh my god, have also broken their ankles on these rocks probably, have also discovered the bones of crocodiles, giraffes, wolves, and bears. Again, all animals that one doesn't really think of being endemic to the Anatolian steppe, but we have to remember that the environment would have been vastly different at the time. Archaeologists are still not entirely sure whether or not these were species which were hunted directly here, or if they were part of a vast trade network. The evidence for a vast trade network is supported just beyond these bones. Archaeologists at Karahan-Tepe have also found obsidian tools, and with no obsidian found anywhere within a 200-mile radius of this site, it is clear that they were either going on long expeditions or part of a trade network in order to get it. The other thing you really notice standing at the site is just how big it is. This room is absolutely massive, and it's amazing to think about what this place would have looked like on a table before all of these pillars had been collapsed and covered with, rain and dirt for 12,000 years. It is pretty amazing to just be walking around here and just be able to look at the ground and the things that you'll see. Like, this stone is probably something that there's not a paper written about and is something that's probably not going to be talked about in most publications. But just looking at the craftsmanship of this and realizing that this circular stone was carved by someone and it had an intent and a purpose, and here it is after 12,000 years sitting right in front of us. One of the features of this site that I find the most interesting is this pillar. Now, this is a very recent discovery, only excavated within the last year or so. And you'll notice on this pillar a similar motif to one found at Göbekli Tepe, and that is particularly the human torso with two arms one arm on either side with two arms and toe to hole. However, this one is a little bit different, as the hands on each of these arms that come beneath the front of the T-pillar each have 8 fingers. And now, even though this site is pretty different from Göbekli Tepe, it's very similar in a lot of ways as well. It's also interesting to look at the tops of these stones and see how weathered the very tips are. When we walk around over some of the surrounding hills, we're going to see these tops of stones sticking out. And they are not the brown color that you see in the excavation site, but that kind of light leather black. And so when you see the tops of those stones sticking out of these fields, I want you to try and imagine what's below it.
Going 30 minutes.
95% of the sites
Okay.
Love you. You dressed?
really compelling.
No. Go.
Huh? I didn't hear you.
It doesn't matter.
You can walk pretty much all over this. You can walk pretty much all over this hill and find evidence of all of these sites that have yet to be uncovered. Now, it's a little bit hard to tell without the stones at our feet.
Don't wanna
I can tell you
fucking
that
go.
the